All right. Good morning, and you're welcome to lecture 5 of CENG 261. Right. So a quick recap of what we looked at the previous week. I think we spent the entirety of last week trying to understand dimensions with regards to AutoCAD. All right. So we looked at what dimensioning was in terms of its definition, the various parts or components of dimensions, and we also looked at types of dimensions. So we had the linear, the aligned, angular, radius, diameter, arc length, ordinate, continuous baseline dimensions. All right, and then we also looked at how to create a dimension style, right? And I did mention that dimension styles creation should be one of the first things we do, right? As part of like the template system, okay? So that your objects can properly be dimensioned with the right information in terms of how you want your, or visually how the dimensions should look like. The text height, the extension lines, the offset from the origin, the breakpoints, all of that, how we want them to look like when we plot or when we, in this case, when we draw the dimensions. Okay, so we went through the pool, and I also believe that we also worked on an example to that effect. Okay, so we would continue from there and then look at some other key tools which are useful to us as also the AutoCAD drafting professionals. Okay, now let's look at let's look at text. This is let's look at text. All right. In as much as we've been looking at dimensions, dimensions are there to describe the objects, but they give they help us to quantify the object by giving us various you might have to mute if you are listening in. You may have to mute. Okay, so that there'll be feedback from the your microphone. Okay. All right. So we looked at dimensions, and we mentioned that dimensions can be used to, what's the name? Essentially give us some information or detailed information about the size of the object. All right. Sometimes dimensions alone might not be adequate in explaining an item in terms of giving us key details. All right. So we need to provide texts, and texts are provided to describe a drawing or describe an object. All right. They are they are an essential part of every drawing. So, for example, if you're drawing, let's say, some civil engineering objects, for example, if it's a plan of a first floor, as much as you're trying to dimension, you're putting all the various dimensions of the first floor. You also want to indicate to whoever would look at your work that that plan is the first floor. So you provide a text or a write-up that says, okay, this is first floor plan. And then that should also separate the first floor plan from other floors or other drawings. Okay. And anyone who picks up your drawing can tell that, okay, this is the first floor plan just by that text which you have written below the objects or series of objects. Okay. We have two main types of text. Okay. Two main, let me use the, so two types of text inputs, all right? Two types of, or two ways by which you can input text in AutoCAD. One of them is what we call the single line text. Then we have the multi-line, text. Okay. The multi-line usually is called the M text. All right. So if you'll find the word M text being used often, right? They both are there to provide texts, or I mean, to create the opportunity for us to enter text. Okay. For the single line text, we'll look at what these examples are. For the single line text, usually when you are entering data for the single line text, or you want to, before you start typing, you will be required to specify the height of the text, so the text height. Okay. So for example, if let's say you write the word CENG, maybe 261, the text height is this right here. This is the text height. Okay. Oops, it looks like I than anything else. So the height of this your text is the text height. Okay. Then we have the text rotation angle. Okay. So usually if the text is in this form, right, where it's horizontal and reaching from left to right, then that text, the rotation angle will be 0. All right, so the rotation angle for this text is 0. Then if the text is written, let me see if I can write it this way, where, oops, this looks super funny. So if I have it this way, okay, where it's rotated about at 90 degrees with respect to the counterclockwise direction, then it means that the angle of rotation for this vertically written text will be 90 degrees. Okay, we can do that in the program as well. One thing about single line text, as the name implies, is that texts are typically on one line. So texts are on, oops, on one line. Okay. And this are done so that the text can qualify as one object. Okay. This is make sure that the text qualifies as one object. I'll try to explain the concept behind this. Okay. So for example, if I'm writing, so let me put an example in this space. So example, so let's say, let me use this for example. Okay. Let's say I write the quick brown fox. Okay. As long as everything is on one line, like in this case where the quick brown fox is on one line, then that entire line of text is seen as one object. So the quick brown fox is one object. Okay. Now, let's say after typing the quick brown fox, I So, okay, let me just write the whole thing. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Okay, this is, I think, uh, in writing uh, letters, it contains all the 26 letters in the alphabet. Okay, if you look at it, you'll find from A to Z. Okay, so as long as I've written it in this form, this is one object. Okay, nothing fancy over here. Let me see if I can push you to this side a little bit. So here, the quick brown fox is one text. I can take it. So let me rewrite this whole thing now. Uh, so have the quick brown fox, and then, oh, where's my F? And then my G. Okay. So the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Assuming that when I get to the quick brown fox, I press the enter key. So once I press the enter key, it means that the jumps over the lazy dog goes to the next line below. Okay, I'll work on it. So goes to the line below. If I'm using the single line text, what it does is that it begins to see them as separate objects. So now instead of one object in the first case, so this is, let's say, case one. This is case one, and this is case two. So with case two, now you have object one and then object two. So now you have two objects. Okay. So with a single line text, as the name implies, anytime you click on the enter key or the return key on your keyboard to move to the next line below to text, it sees the text below or the information that text as one object, and then the one on the other line below is also seen as a different object. Okay, so that's something to take note of. You find, I mean, it's that's the whole idea of the single line text, anyways. Okay. So once they're on separate lines, they are different objects. Okay. But let me put that information here. For single line text, um, they should I say they are different objects. Let me hopefully I get the English right. They are different objects for different lines. All right. Hopefully this makes sense. Okay. The next one will be the multi-line text. So we again, as the name implies, multi-line. Okay. So with the multi-line text, going back to our quick brown fox example. All right. Oops. Okay, it's fine. So our quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. If you are to use that, when you're using the multi-line text to type this, it sees everything. Again, all of this will be one object. Okay. But the key thing is that when you rewrite this information, whereby a portion of it has to be written below because of maybe space or something, because maybe you have also pressed the enter key, it doesn't see the different lines as different objects. It still sees the entire object within the space as one object. Okay. So regardless of whether you write in one line or on one line or on multiple lines, it sees the text within that space as context. All right. So it becomes like more or less like a way that we type in Word, right? Where we just keep typing and typing, right? So that's the idea of the multi-line text. So usually if you want to use the multi-line text, you need to specify the area in which you want to type the text. So specify the area to type the text. Just like trying to create a small window where your text will fit into. This window is expandable. It can be expanded. Mostly the expansion has to do with its expanding towards the left or right, or increasing it horizontally, right? And then you have some series of like a ruler or something at the top. Then you have your text in the space. Okay. So we can do that. And one thing it also presents to us is a text editor. Okay. And a text editor works just like that of what's the name? That of Word, right? Where if you go into Word, you'll see the home, um, what's the name? You can change your font type, change your font color, um, do paragraphing, do bulleting, and all of these many different things that we can do with text. We can also do same thing when it comes to the um, am I looking for? Yeah. So when it comes to the AutoCAD multi-line text editor, right? So we will look at that shortly and then see how. Um, so usually when we want to type in texts, you will be required to specify the area, which is one of the critical things that we look at. Second, just gonna bring this thing up so we can see what I'm referring to. Um, this one works. I guess it should work. Let's pull this in up. Hopefully it comes up here. So I want to show you guys the text editor. Um, so regardless of the rules of text, I'm gonna put that also over here. So regardless, um, of the rules of text, um, the text behaves as one object. Okay. So that's the thing, the major difference between the two. Someone texted me. No, okay. Why is my thing not showing? Let me move from there. Let me come back. Okay. It's one of those days, I guess. I wanted to show you something, but for whatever reason, it's not appearing. It's supposed to be. Um, so hopefully when it shows, okay. Hopefully it's going to appear at some point and we can all see how it looks like. In the meantime, just like how we have dimension style, we also need to do a text style. Okay. So the text style will have to do with how your texts will appear, how the text should appear. Okay. Um, so with that, we're also going to open a text style window, just like how we had the dimension style window. So you open the text style window, and then you would be able to change the font, the style of the font, be able to change the height, and then add some effects to the text. Okay. My screen it doesn't seem to synchronizing. I don't know why it's not synchronizing. Unless I'm doing something wrong. Give me a second. I'm gonna just restart it so that maybe it works or something. Yeah, this is interesting. Still not working. Do I solve this problem? To be synchronized, but it's not. I've done everything I can to make it work. Okay, let me try this and see. Hopefully this one comes up good. Um, anyways, let's just move on with it. Okay. I will explain that once I move to the software. Okay. Let me do the sharing again just in case I haven't done it. So share screen. Okay. So I think the screen is being shared now. Finally, that's come. Okay, great. Um, yeah, so this is your text editor. Okay. Um, so it looks like what we have over here. So just like how it's in Word, all right, so there's a portion to determine on the text style that we want. Then we have the formatting, all right, how the text should appear. So we can do text matching. You can bold italics, sorry. You can also underline the text, the font type, the color, and all of that. Then in this page, you can look at the paragraphing in the space. So bulleting, there is it going to be left indentation, uh, center indentation, is it going to be justify or right? Then you can also add a bit of columns here and there, symbols and then whatnot. You can also check the spellings and even find and replace items. I mean, find and replace text. Okay, so it's a full-blown text editor as you'll find in Word. Okay, a very useful tool to have when we are looking at the text. What's the name? The text. Um, the texting with regards to the multi-line text. Okay. Um, something is slow today. Can't put my hands on it. But something seems to be very slow. Okay. So we would head over and look at how these things work. But before we do that, I want us to also look at so this is text. Let me call this one. And the next thing will be two, which will be tables, right? We don't really talk much about tables, but you can also enter tables in AutoCAD. All right. Where tables they behave as simply, I can put it as though like as Excel, right? So they behave as X, like how Excel is Microsoft Excel, where you have a series of rows and then columns. Okay, so like as creating cells where you can enter data. All right, so you can create cells and then enter data in these cells. Um, so with just like how we have it in Excel, you can resize the cells, right? You can resize the cells. You can even resize um, the rows, increase the number of rows that you have, and also increase the number of columns that you also have. Okay, there are different ways to look at this. You can also stretch the table, right? You can uh, stretch the table, which is pretty much trying to resize the cells in a way. Okay. Um, so usually you can just to activate the tables, you usually have to type in a command line table. All right. And then so when you type in a command line, so type table, uh, the command line, and usually you will have a dialog box. Oops, window or the tables window appear. Okay. So when the tables window appear, that should help us to use that to decide on how we want the table to look like. Hopefully this time around I can show it to you guys without much stress. I don't know what's happening today, but it's an interesting day today. It takes too long. So you have a window appearing, and the when the window appears, it gives you the option of how to design your table. All right. So generally, you can enter or you can just go ahead and then enter the number of columns that you need or number of rows and columns that we need. Check this one out. Just make it bigger. So you enter the number of rows and columns needed. Then there are some options which you find that also in Excel. Options with regards to what your options on the first, let me put this on the first and second row. Okay. So in Excel, when you're using tables, you'll realize that you can either have your first row being the title. Okay. Maybe yours. second row being the header. Then maybe your third row is where you would enter the data. Okay. You can decide on how you want it. So we can have a case whereby we have the scenario. So let me just draw something just to show the table. All right. So here's the title. Okay. Then maybe this could be the header and header and header. Okay. Then below the header, we have the data. So generally, this is how it appears. So we have the data all the way to the end. So this is how the table appears. Okay. In putting up the table, you can suppress any of them. So you can suppress, typically these two are what are suppressible. Let me use the word. All right, so you can suppress these. Okay, so you can suppress all the two or either of them. So for example, if you suppress the title, it means that your first row will not be title, but it might be header. If you have to suppress both the title and then the header, then it means that your first row would be the row to enter data. Okay. And then once you create the table, anytime you click in a cell, a window appears where you can just type in whatever you want to have in the cell. All right. Then the other thing that we can look at is that tables do have, or table have grips. So table has grips, where you can use that to change the size of rows. The and columns. Okay. Hopefully my diagram shows. Whatever reason today is just not showing. Don't know what is happening. Still trying to synchronize. Okay. I don't think it's an internet issue, but so tables have grips to change the size of rows and columns. Usually we click within a cell to type. So always remember, click within a cell to type. So in the same way, we also have a text style. We also have a window, a table style, sorry. All right, so there's also a table style, how you want the tables to generally look like. Okay. These are important to us in a sense that when you are trying to draw, we are trying to draw in AutoCAD, the AutoCAD application, you want to have a template. All right. I mean, you don't mostly these drawings are done in engineering offices or architectural offices, right? And over the years, you realize that you pretty much do something that is similar all through, right? If you're in the structural engineering firms, you would always be drawing columns, you always be drawing beams, slabs, and foundation footings. It's always one of these, right? So it is best that you create a file which can be used over and over again. All right. You don't want to each time you want to draft, then you have to come back and set your paper limits and set your dimension style, set your units, set your table style, your text style, your multi-line style, and all of that. That takes forever. All right. And one of the key things about AutoCAD has to do with its efficiency. Okay. So usually you would prefer that, okay, you spend time, you create this one file, which has how you want all your data to look like. Then you convert this drawing into a template. So that when anybody picks up this drawing file or this template file, it has the necessary information that can help you to replicate the exact same thing that you want in terms of maybe how the data in your drawing should appear. All right. So for that key reason, you'll realize that most of the things we have been talking about for some time now, you would always end up with a style, a dimension style, a table style, a multi-leader style, a text style, table style, so that these can be used to help you to create the templates that you would need, uh, so that you can reuse these templates in the engineering or architectural office space. Um, but again, with the table style, you have some sets of data we call the general, and the general will be how the data should be aligned to the alignment, and also do you want to have a color, a shaded fill up color within your drawing. Mostly you wouldn't prefer that, okay? And also how the text should look like, and if you want to have borders around the text. Okay. The major thing with, or one of the key things with the multi-line, sorry, with the table, is that you have to look at what you call the insertion behavior. Okay. How we insert the table into our drawing. Okay. So with that, we have two types. We have the insertion points, and then we have the specify window. Okay. They are slightly different in terms of how initially your table would appear. Okay. So with the insertion point, your focus here is that usually when you use the insertion point, your tables are fixed rows and columns. All right. So normally you would be asked to enter how many columns and how many rows that you want. All right. It doesn't mean that if you've done putting that in your drawing area, you cannot change the sizes. You can still go ahead and change the sizes of the columns and in the row. With the specify window, it doesn't give you any fixed number of columns and rows. So here you can determine, or after you draw the table, you can determine how many rows and columns you want. So that's the key. Well, these are the differences to take note of. The other info is that you can perform uh, arithmetic operations in the cells. So again, just like Excel, if you have, let's say, these two cells, maybe these three cells, maybe if this is cell, maybe B1, maybe this is C1, this is D1, for example. Yes, I'm correct. Yeah. So if cell B1 is maybe 4 and cell C1 is, let's say, 3, you can actually do, you can actually write, so in cell D1, you can write this is equal to B1 plus C1, and it will return an answer equal to 7. in the table. So we can do that with the AutoCAD program as well. Unfortunately, I'm not able to get the pictures I'm uploading today for us to see before we move on to the application. I don't know what is happening. Something is not right. Yes. I don't think it's the internet. And the internet is just fine. All right, so I'll continue to do the recording and then we can watch that later. Okay. Um, so that is this. These are the things that we have to look at with regards to text and tables. I'm going to move into the application, and we can have an experience as to how these things do work. Okay. So let's see if I can share my screen, and then from the other side, and then we can. What did I just do? I can't seem to see my. Okay, yeah, back. So let's get to the other. Let's see if I can share the screen. What is this? Where are you? Where are you? Okay, share screen. Okay. Okay. Screen are we seeing now? Okay. All right. So let's look at so I think so with it with the what am I looking for? Okay. So with the texts, you can easily go to annotate. All right. So when you go to annotate, when you click on annotate, you can see the text line or the text. So when you go to annotate, you can actually see the whole text panel right here. Okay. So in this space, you have the option of choosing between the multi-line texts and then the single line texts. All right. So we can see, so we have the multi-line text and then the single line text. Okay. So with the single line text, so let's start with that one. When you click on it and you come to your command window, it gives you the number of options, right? So we have current text heights. It tells you the height of the text, which is 3. Justification is left. No annotations or no, it's not annotative. All right. So here you can specify, you can also change, what's the name? You can specify the start points of your texts. Or if you already have a text style created, you can use that text style. For now, we don't have any text style, so let's just go ahead and then click within the space where we want to start our text. Okay. So we have been asked to enter the height. So we just maintain the height of 3 for now, which might be small. And also, again, if you go down, there it says we should specify the angle of rotation. We'll keep the angle of rotation to be 0. And then you can see that the cursor is appearing. It has this blinking kind of like visual experience to it. So here I can just type, and then we see that. So let me just reduce the size a little bit. Okay, this is fast. A quick brown fox. Okay, so jumps over the lazy dog. Okay, so this is great. All right. So if I'm done, oops, I didn't say what I just typed. It happens, yeah. So we go through the same steps, and then we have, so we just go here. Oops. So back again, the quick brown fox. Oh, it jumps over the lazy dog. So we have this big text. Let me, yeah. So I just double click enter, and then I have my text looking like that. Okay. So here, if you're using the single line text mode, everything in this text is one object. So you see, once I click, everything is highlighted as one object. Okay. If I'm to again use the single line text, let's look at it again. Same approach as before. Okay. So again, I'm typing below. Maybe let me use just typing something. Don't worry about it. All right. And then here, if I type the day of the sun is great and I click enter, now I move to a line below, right? Then I can say maybe the night of the moon is also great. Okay. So whilst I'm typing, they look as though everything here is one object. But when I double click the enter key to exit the what's the name, the text command, when you come back, you'd realize that the day of the sun is a different object, and then the night of the moon is also a different object. So now you have two separate objects, even though you type them together, right? Whilst you are typing, one of them, because we click on the enter key or the return key, we create a different object anytime we are using the single line text. Okay, so let's take a note of that. The other option is to use a multi-line. So again, you go to the top left of your panel, click on the options to choose whether a multi-line or a single line. So if you click on a multi-line, you'll be asked to draw a window where you want to type your text in. Okay. So if you click, so when you click on this window and you create this window as I'm trying to create, I have this, so the window has appeared, all right? So it's like what I described earlier, like a ruler kind of thing at the top, where you can reduce and increase the width of your window for the text. Okay, so here you'll see that we do have the text editor appearing, or the text editor ribbon appearing, and this can be used to make changes or to help you to come up with a nicely done text. Okay, so going back, I can type oops, why is my typing not working? Okay, okay, good. So the quick brown fox, so let's say jumps, then I type enter, right? So over the lazy dog, and you'll see that even though I've entered with a multi-line text, it treats everything as one object. Okay, so once I'm done, I close my text editor, and here, when I select the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, it selects everything as one object, which is very useful. All right, so most of the time, unless you are writing just a single line of text. But if you're going to end up with a series of lines of text, then the multi-line approach would be the better to go with. Okay. Now you can double click to edit your text. So when you double click, here's like how we have it in Word. You just highlight the text and then you can play around with it. You can change the color to red. You can increase the height of the text. All right. So you can enter maybe 6 to increase the height of the text, 6 and enter, and then the text becomes bigger. All right. You can also come back to the text window and then increase the width of the text so that you can have your text occupying more or less room. Okay. You can also change how the text appears in terms of its justification. Okay. The top left, top right, I mean, there are the options over here for us. You can decide on which one we want to do, center, and then your text becomes centered, or right, and it goes to the right, okay, or left, and it comes to the left. So there are different options. And once you're done with the editing, you can even make it bold, all of that. You can italics, you can underline, so you can play around with it. I think this is what overline. That's an interesting word to use. So overline, this is what strike through. So just like what you have in Word, all right, you can also do uppercase throughout or just lowercase. Okay. You can also add symbols, very important. You can also add symbols. We have this should bring up a window. Yeah, if you use the order, it gives you the window, and you can add some um, Latin or Greek. Let's say maybe we want to add beta, so I can add beta to it, and then beta should enter. What's happening? Okay, so usually I think this one is a bit interesting. Doesn't work like Word, where Word you have to just click on insert. I think with this you have to copy and then maybe paste. Yeah, it should work. Yeah, so copy and paste, and then you can have your beta looking exactly the same as your other letters. Okay. Yeah, so let's look at the text style. Again, there are ways by which we can invoke the text style window. We can go to format, then come and look for the text style. Okay, so we click on text style, and the text style window should appear. Okay, so just like how we have the dimension style, you can create text styles. Okay, so you can come here, create a new text style. Maybe let's call it maybe text today, just like that. So we create OK. We can enter the height that we want. You can enter the width that we want. We can decide on what type of font to go with. So let's say maybe the font is Broadway. The font type is regular. This is fine. Normally, you would want to leave your text height at 0 because 0 doesn't mean that the text will appear 0. It just means that you can, it's easy to change the height of the text as you go along, especially if you have to look at the annotative later on. All right. But let's say we do a text height of maybe 5, okay, for the text height. The width factor is fine. There's no need to change it. The effects, do you want it upwards or backwards or upside down or whatever? You can. So anytime you change it, there's a little bit of preview that we have on the left side, just so that we see what is going on. So once we have that, we can set that as our current text. Or assuming that our text today is our current text. Okay, then we close. Let's see if it's so it appears in the text panel that our current text style is the text today. So when you start a multi-line, and then maybe you enter, you can see that now the text looks different. I didn't change the color. I should have changed the color. So I can have something like this. So the quick brown fox is quick. All right. So this is based off the text style that we just created. Okay. So we can always go in there and then modify the text style. Okay. Can I modify it? Not give me the options of modifying. Okay. So it means it looks like we don't have that over here. No, I think we should. Let me see. Let's play around with it and let's see what's going to happen. So let's apply. Let's close. Oh yeah, it works. All right. So there's no modification button, but at any time you make any change and then you save it, it will take the form of whatever you want it to be. Something I'm looking for. Let me see if I can find it over here. I don't have that option. I might have to look for it later. Some information I'm looking for. Okay, I'll look for it later. All right. So generally, this is the plan of the texts. I think the major thing is that when you want to use the text, you have to select the kind of layer you want. So we can always come and create a layer. Let's call that layer texts for the text layer. And then what just happened? So we have the text layer, and then let's change the color to maybe green. Okay. Great. So we can leave that. We want to plot the text layer, so we leave it as it is. What is going to happen? I think that anytime you are trying to type text, you have to choose the text layer, which I think I have to investigate properly on that. Yeah, so let's say if I want to type a multi-line text, again in the space, let's say hello world. Okay. So I think this is where we can do the change. Yeah, so it's the same. It's not really gonna. So just go with by layer and then we're good. Okay, so hello world. I've left out my L. Okay, so that will give us what's the name? The color green as we want it. Okay. Now let's look at the tables. All right. So again, the tables can be found at the annotate tab. Okay, so we have the table right here. So there's a table panel where you can play around with the table. So we just click on tables, and then there should be, oops, why, oh yeah. So there's a table window appearing right now. Okay. So here you can do so many things with it. So by default so there's a preview of your table, which has the, so the preview has this little information here, which shows us the header, the title, the header, then data. Okay. Then for the insertion behavior, as I mentioned, the insertion behavior will give us the option of whether to use the insertion points or the specified window. Okay. So let's say we want to go with the insertion point. Okay, then here you can actually specify your columns and then your data rows, how big or how small they should be. Okay. So let's say 6 columns, 6 rows are fine. Then also you can come in here and look at the cell style. Okay. So your first row can either be a title or a header or data. Now it is a title. Assuming I click it to become a header, you'll see that when you go to your preview, the title is now missing. It's no longer there. All right. You can also go to your second row, the cell, and then convert from header to data. Okay. And then you can rearrange how everything appears. So let's keep it as it is, title, header, and then the other rows will also have just data. Okay. So I think this is fine. We click OK, and then we'll have a snippet of how the whole thing will look like, the table will look like. All right. So there's the header, there's the title, and also there's the data. So you can insert it anywhere. And then just like how we have it in Excel, the same thing appears over here. So if you look at it, we chose 6 columns, 6 rows, sorry. But because we had a title and then a header, those do not count towards the number of rows that we need. All right, so the number of rows and number of columns are for the data point or the data that would be entering. Okay. So because row 1 is the header, it creates only 1 row, no columns. So we can say that, okay, maybe you can type in here civil engineering. Okay. Here again, you can change the way you want your text and everything to appear. All right, you can, again, your text editor will show up. The way you want your text to appear, everything can be changed. Okay, so let's just go with what we have by default. So once you are done, click the next cell, and then you can enter your data. Okay, so just type in maybe 101. Then you can move to the next cell. Just click in the next cell, and then you can type in whatever data you want. 10, maybe 5. All right. So you can do that, and anytime you hover over your table, it gives you the cell names, right? So the columns are A, B, C up to F in this case, and your row are from 1 to 8. Okay. So let's say we want to add 101 to 105, right? So that should give about 206. So we click in the maybe cell C2 and go like, let cell C2 be equal to cell A1. So let's say A1 plus, sorry, not A1, A2. Cell A2 plus cell B2. So once we click on it and then we click enter, the answer is now 206. Okay. So it's 206. And it knows that this cell was not entered by you. So it gives it a little bit of shading to indicate that this is cell based on data from other cells. Now let's see something. I haven't tried it before. Let me change this one to maybe 405 and see if automatically the cell will change, which it does. All right, so this is like a proper table system. You can also insert from Excel into AutoCAD, right? Again, we can also create tables. Let me show the other option, which is to specify the window. And with that option, when you click on it, you see it doesn't give you, it doesn't come with a predetermined set of columns and rows. It just gives you some information, some minor thing. Then where's the grip? So once you click on any of the tables, you have the grips, which can be used to increase the cell sizes and also increase the number of columns that we have and rows that we have. Oops, something is missing. Okay, sorry, I think this is what I'm looking for. There's a grip at the midpoint. I'm supposed to be able to pick it up. No, okay. It's not working. Let me go back. I'm not able to get this. No, not you. Okay. Sometimes when you want to pick up, no, not this guy. This guy is fine. There's a grip here. I don't know why it's not picking up. Table breaking active breakpoint sites. Supposed to work. For whatever reason, I'm not able to select it. Let me try that one up there and see. Table breaking is inactive. Click and drag to set break heights. So not working. Interesting. It's supposed to give me the options of. Oh, so that actually works with this one. Oh, it still doesn't work. Okay. I'll try to figure out. I don't know why. Let me go back. Table. No. Okay, let me know. Let me go. Let me have what I had previously. Okay, great. Come here and then let's see. So normally you should be able to play around with the number of rows, but for whatever reason, it's not allowing me to do that. Let me try another table and see. Do this again. Okay, yeah, so this is what I was looking for, right? So as you are trying to insert the table, now as you move downwards, you get the option of deciding how many rows you need. The columns are already predetermined in the table window, but then as you're inserting the table, you can actually increase the number of rows that you need. All right. And then if you're okay with it, you just click OK, and then you have, so this can have how many rows? I have 18, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 columns. Okay. Then you can enter the information here. Again, these are things that you need to know, but sometimes you will hardly find yourself using them. Yeah. The only time you would use tables is if you are doing a bending schedule or a bending schedule, right? We'll look at what that is hopefully from next week. And it's just it's data which gives information on especially with the rebars, how many rebars you are using, the size of rebar, and some other information that is critical to we being able to construct from your drawing. So I think this should be for the table, and then the text. There should be also a table style. all right, where you decide on how the table should look like. So if you go to the format and you go to table style, you have a table style, you create new ones. So let's say new, maybe let's call it table one. So we click OK, continue. Then we can tell how this table should look like. So here you can play around with it. Generally how the table should look like, the alignment, the fill color, typically should be none, data type, is it data, is it label, the margins of the data, of the table. Then you can also come in and look at, you can look at the text and then decide on what kind of text you want to use. All right. So even here, you can even use the text style that you want. So here, if I say, let's use the text style, text today, the text color I can use by layer or by whatever. I can decide on what color I want. Maybe let's say I want to red and have a red data kind of, which usually is terrible. So let's go with black. That's better. Then the borders, how you want the borders to look like. Is it going to be the line type, the line weight? How do you want things to look like? Usually, they should appear. So let's, for example, if I choose one of these options as my borders, so we have the all borders, the outside borders, the inner, the bottom, the left, the top, right, and no borders. So if I choose, let's say, outside borders, and they will take the color as I've specified. So the line weight is 30.30. The color is red. So let's see. We click OK. Then let's set that as our current layer, which normally should be. So let's go to tables again. In this case, we are using table one. So we like what we are seeing. We click OK. And then maybe I start from somewhere here. And you can see that this is how my table will look like when I'm done. Let's increase the size slightly. Then when I type in the space, it should give me, okay, this is fine. What needs to change is the one here. Let's see. Yeah, so that will change. So that one would have the text properties as indicated earlier. Okay. Now let's look at how to plot. One of the key components in AutoCAD is that after you're done with the drawing, what do you do with the drawing? Okay. So plotting. Lesson number 3. Plotting and printing. Okay. They are about the same in terms of what they are being used for, but there's slight differences between plotting and printing. Okay. So normally when you're done with your drawing and you want to have some other technical person look at your drawings, it means that you have the option of sending them the AutoCAD file as it is for them to review it, which is not usually the case, especially if you're giving it to a client. You wouldn't want to give the client the AutoCAD drawings. They wouldn't know what to do with the drawings, right? Or the drawing file, right? And they could mess things up. So usually you don't give the client the drawing file. You try to convert the drawing file into some formats and then given to the client. Typically, you print on the paper and then give the client the hard copy or the hard copy version of your drawings, right? And the manner in which you give it to your client is critical because otherwise, if things are too small, they cannot see. If things are too big, again, that also becomes a bit cumbersome in terms of how many sheets you would have after printing. So there's a lot that goes into plotting actually when it comes to um, AutoCAD. All right, so we'll try and spend some time to look at that. Um, so let's look at what the differences are between plotting and printing. Okay. So um, plotting is usually for creating uh, creating hard copies on very large sheets. Okay. So here we're looking at, let's say, if I'm using the American paper sizes, then that will be sizes D and E. But if I were to use the ISOs, they are looking at size A, not size A1. They are very large, right? And we need specialized printers, which we call plotters. Okay. And they are um, used to produce their drawings. Okay. They mostly have this long. I think the guy at the Food Plaza has one, if I remember. All right. So they typically use pens. There is an in such a way that they use pens to draw, all right, or to draw the object on the paper that is produced as a final print. Okay. Um, so for printers, they are usually smaller sizes. So again, used for creating uh, hard copies on typical or typically smaller sized or small sized sheets. All right, so maybe you have your A and B's, or if you have to look at the ISO, then that maybe that'll be uh, your A4, your A5, your A3 sometimes. Some can print A3 as well. So they are smaller sizes, right? So the examples are the LaserJet printers, the DexJet printers, and also the inkjet printers. Yeah. LaserJets, inkjets, whatever, these are just types of printing that we have. So when we want to plot, there are a few things we look at before we do printing. One is what type of plotter to use or printer to use. We'll look at that. All right. Then the next one will be what paper size to use. Okay. What paper size to use. Then we have the third one. It will be what area to plot. And then Number 4, at what scale? At what scale to plot or to print? Okay. Because mostly we use plot because the final work you are usually plotted. All right. When you go to engineering offices, they usually have this they print or plot on very large sheets, A2, sorry, A not A1, and then or maybe there's sizes D and E, and those are achieved using the plotter. So let's see what type of plotter and printer to use is what you have in your office, pretty much, right? If you are doing printing whereby you just want some like you want to have a discussion or maybe a drawing and you want to print and then discuss amongst maybe the engineers in the office, then you might decide to use a printer, maybe on an A2 or A3 printer, so that you can just discuss it and make corrections where necessary. All right. So what type of printer to use depends on what the final output is meant to achieve. All right. Is it heading to the client? Is it going to maybe the district assemblies to review? And if it's going to there for them to review, that means that it needs to be in a proper paper format. And you would end up with what? Plotting them. Okay. Are you going to use a colored plotter or a black and white plotter? Okay. Again, these are uh, things that are important to us. Normally, if it's going to the client or it's going to the construction site, you would prefer to have the plotter colored so that the engineers on site can, or the workers on site can identify the different elements of the building if it's for a building. Okay. Then the paper size to use, we have those that are based on the inches, the A, B, C, D, E. Then we have the ISO, which are also based on the, so we have, I think we have the A naught all the way to, I think there's even A7 or A8 or so. There are so many of those. Okay. What area to plot? We'll look at that. We'll show that in the, let me see if I can bring this thing up. So all this while the file never showed up. I see. So let's look at the area to plot. There are a few areas that we focus on. So for the area to plot, let me put that over here. Let's do it this way. Okay. So for the area to plot, we have a few areas that we look at. So we have extent, we have window, we have display, and the limits. Yeah. So with the extent, if you want to plot and then you choose extent or extents, I think there's an S. If you choose the extent, what it does is that it prints or it plots everything in the AutoCAD drawing file. So it plots everything in there. So it's more or less like what what you see is what you get, right? As we say, then, right? The same thing. So what you see is what you get. So everything that is in there is printed. All right. So that's if you want to, and usually you might use extent if maybe the objects in your drawings are not far apart, they are not stretched, something very small, and you can use extent. Now, for the window, as the name implies, you draw what you call a selection window. So you draw a selection window around the object to be plotted. Okay. Then for the display, it pretty much prints or it plots the current view. Okay. So for example, if you have your drawing, but maybe you zoom into a certain part of the drawing where some are not visible to you, like as you're looking at the screen, they are not that you cannot see them because maybe they are on the other side of the screen. When you click display, it's only going to print what you see, right? What you see and nothing else. All right. So or what is appearing on your screen. And put it that way. So what is appearing on your screen is what will be plotted. Okay. We also have what's the name? We also have what we call the limits, which pretty much you can prescribe some limits. So like how we have the limits for creating a drawing area, you can also prescribe limits whereby you print according to a set limit. So print to prescribed. All right. The the display and the limits, these are hardly used. Okay, just take note. So hardly used. Okay. Then we have the other printing option, which we'll look at extensively later. So we have the extend window display limit. We also have layout. Okay. But I'll leave that for now. We'll look at it extensively because there's more that goes into layout. Okay. We hardly use uh, the display and then the limits. Extends fine, windows fine, but display limits are hardly used. Okay. And then the next one is what scale to plot. So let me move this things around a little bit so that it looks great. Okay. Yeah. Now this is something. This is fine. So at what scale do we plot? That's a good question. Okay. So we'll delve a bit more into scaling and plots. We'll delve more into that and see what goes into scale and plotting. But normally, if you are going to print something for a quick round discussion or a quick table discussion, you don't care too much about the scaling, right? You just want to print something that people can just see and then maybe give comments on. So you're not too concerned. Okay. Normally, the canvas that we draw in or we draw in the model space, we usually draw 1:1 or what we call the life scale. Okay. So we usually plot, we usually not plot, we usually draw in a 1:1 scale or what you call the life scale. I think so. Okay. So we draw, normally I draw is just 1:1. You don't We are not too much concerned with how things are appearing. Okay, no, life size. The word is life size. Okay, great. Okay. Now, when you are printing, you need to develop a skill for the printing. Okay. So is a skill 1:1, 1:2, 1:4, 1:10, 1:100? All right. And it depends on how we understand scaling, which we'll spend a bit more time to look at. We know that, what's the name? What's wrong with my internet? Put you off. And then put you back on again. Let's see. Okay, all right. So we'll look at how to do the scaling shortly. Then we can also look at number 5. Let me add that one. What orientation to plot in? Okay. So with that orientation, is it going to be landscape? Is it going to be portrait? So we have two main orientations. So we have the landscape mode, and then we have the portrait mode. Okay. So these are the modes we plot in. The landscape has the longer side in the horizontal direction. Then with the portrait mode, the longer side is in the vertical direction. Okay. Usually, we do the landscape mode. Usually, especially with engineering drawings, we do the landscape mode. Depending on the orientation of the drawings and depending on how the drawings are done, you might also end up using the portrait mode. But typically, the landscape mode is what is used. Okay. So let's look at how to plot. I mean, we'll come back and then play around with a small plotting thing because it's so critical to what we do with regards to using the right plotting type. Let's just zoom into the AutoCAD and then we'll see. Where are you? Sharing. All right, so let's exit the table and then look at how to plot. All right. So we have all of these done nicely. Let's come in here. Let's try to plot the text. Okay. So there are ways to plot or print. Okay. So we have the options. You can go to the application menu and then look for print. All right. So that's one way to look at it. So you click on print and then we have the plots. It says plots, plot a drawing to a plotter, printer, or file. All right. You can look at some of these, what batch plots and all of that means, and the page setup and all of that. Okay. So we can do that. Or if you go to your quick access if you go to your quick access toolbar at the top here, you would see that we have the icon for the printing or the plotting. All right. So it's usually there. If it's not there, or if it's not visible, what we can do is that you can right click, oops, sorry, left click on the drop down arrow at the end of the quick access toolbar, and then make sure that the plot has been checked. Okay. If the plot is unchecked, it hides. So that is gone, right? If the plot is checked, it's visible. You want that because it makes what's the name? Printing easier. So let's look at the print. So once you click on plot, a window, a plotting window appears. Okay. So let's spend some time over here to see what happens. So we have in this space, so here is a printer. Oops, it's a terrible drawing. So here we have, this is better. So we have the printer. So there's a printer should have a name, the name and where it's being printed to and all of that. Okay. So when you click down on the drop down arrow, it gives you the options that we have available to us. Okay. In my case, you might only see printers because that's all that I have access to. Everywhere, if I was in an office space, a general office space, you would have seen some of the plotter names appearing. Okay. So these are what we have. So we can print to OneNote. We can print to my laser jet printer. So I have a few of them. As you can see, there's a HP, MFP, whatever. You can also print to PDF, to like into an electronic copy. Okay. And we have different qualities that we can choose to print to. Okay. You find, I think the one I use to print to file is the AutoCAD to PDF .pc3. I use that a lot to print to PDF. Okay. So let's say we are printing to PDF, so I can choose that one for now. So drawing to PDF, I click on that. Okay. So that's the name of the file. It gives you it gives you the full name of the plotter, as you can see. Drawing to PDF, PDF e-plots by Autodesk. Okay. And since we are dealing with PDF, we get the PDF options, right? How the PDF should look like, right? And all of that. The merge control, we can look at some of them later. Okay, so let's cancel for now. The next thing will be to look at the paper size, which is right there in the space for the paper size. Okay, so here I have my ISO A4, which is my default paper size. If you click on the drop-down arrow, it gives you so many paper sizes. All right. And the thing about the paper size is that it is reflective of what your printer is. Okay. So if your printer is a printer that can only print, let's say, A4 and A3, it's not going to show the other ones because your printer cannot print the other sizes. Okay. So there are few of them. So let's say you can print on, let's say, ISO A0, there's A1, A1, A2. And for some of them, if you take a critical look, for example, if you look at the A2, let me see if I can do something crazy. No, it's not going to work. No, it's not working. Okay. I was hoping I could increase the font size, but it's not working. So if you look at the ISO A2, they are the same dimensions, but one is in portrait mode and one is in the landscape mode. Okay. Just so that we take a note of that. Then we look at that. Okay. Then here, what to plot, or with regards to the plot area, we are looking at what to plot. Okay, right here. So with the what to plot in the plot area, so we have the display, the extents, the limits, and then the window. Okay, the format I explained earlier. So let's play around with them. We'll see which one works and how they work. All right. Then a few other things. We have the plot options. Which one do we even need now? Okay, so let me just go this way. So we have so the drawing orientation. Okay, is it portrait? Is it landscape? Or is it upside down? So when you click on landscape, it positions the drawing. So it's the drawing orientation, not necessarily the paper orientation. All right, it means that the drawing is going to be placed in the landscape. We'll look at some of these examples shortly. Then we have offset to origin. All right, the offset to origin is the position of the drawing with respect to the paper. All right, mostly we prefer to go with center the plots. Okay, so that the drawing is positioned right in the middle of the paper. But sometimes you might want your drawing skewed a little bit to the right because you might want to maybe file the drawings. So maybe clip them, staple them, and all of that. So you would want to have maybe a bigger space on the left so that when you clip or you staple, parts of your drawings are not hidden from the viewer. Okay. Yeah, so let's look at water plots, the different cases that would appear. All right, so let's start with the extent. Okay. So once we click on extent, so let me use center the plots. And let's preview, right? We can always preview and see what we are drawing. A very useful tool to have is a preview tool. Okay. So when you click on preview, it shows you all the things you have been drawing, everything. So this is all that I've been doing on this particular drawing file. Okay. So it's going to go ahead and then print this if I'm okay with it. Okay. So here's the plots preview at the top. If you go to the top, right here, top left, you can either go ahead and click on the print. There is the pan, there is a zoom, there's a zoom window. Which one is this one too? It's not giving me an idea where it is, but the first two are the zoom and zoom window. Then if you're okay with the plot preview, you can close it. Okay. So zoom original, interesting. Okay. So we can close the plot preview if we are okay with it. We don't want to do extent. All right. Maybe let's try window. So we click on window. Something is not right. So happen. Okay. So once we click on window, it wants you to come and choose a window we want to print. So let's say we want to print a window with a quick brown fox in it. So we draw a box around these sets of texts. And once we click OK, we have that. So now it says what to plot window, and we've got to choose the window we want. Let's center the plot. So our drawing is right at the center. And there's always a preview of the drawing with respect to the paper right here. So this is a preview of the drawing with respect to the paper. Okay. So now let's look at the preview. So here's our preview, which will be only the texts that we want. All right. Now let's look at the other options. So let's exit to the preview mode. Let's look at the other options. Let's look at display. So with display, it shows what we want to see or what is appearing to us right now. So if you look at it, is a quick brown fox on the left in text, and then we also have some part of the table showing. Now let's see. Let's preview. Right. So what you see is what will be plotted. All right. So that's generally what goes into plotting. Um, so if you're okay with your plot preview, then you can go ahead and issue the plot. Okay. If you're plotting to a printer, a plotter itself, then the command will be issued. If you are plotting to PDF, it's going to ask you to save the drawing to some place. Okay. I think these are the key things. We'll look at the plot style table. Then we can also look at the plot options. So because we'll come back to this again shortly. Okay. So I think that's about it. Okay. If you realize all my plotting is done within what we call the model space. Okay. All my drawings were done in the model space. See, now look at the bottom left. Okay. There's something interesting going on over there. So there are some tabs, right? On the far left, is a model tab, which is where we pretty much do all our drawings. Okay. Then the right of it, we have layout 1, layout 2, then ISO A1. You might not have all of this. Okay. But at least what you have will be the model space or the model. They also have at least either layout 1 or both layout 1 and 2. Okay. So take note of that. We'll come back to these things shortly. Then there's also a small plus sign afterwards. Okay. So model space, layout 1, layout 2, and a plus sign. Okay, great. So let's see how all of these would eventually work out. So we usually have, so now let me talk more about layouts. Right. The word, yeah. So let me just use the word layouts for now. We'll explain more. Okay. So normally we have two distinct spaces in which we can create or edit drawings. Okay. So we have the model space, which is what I just showed to you guys, where we normally have been doing all our drawings. Then we have what you call the paper space. Okay. So typically, um, 2D or 3D drawings are created in the model space. All right. Like it's just a convention that we go. You can do your drawings in your paper space, but normally it's something that I've hardly seen people come across. I know I've hardly seen people do that. I think last or 2 years ago, I had one student who was doing all his drawings in the paper space, and it wasn't easy for him because he was being taught to use the model space, and he was drawing the paper space, and it was a bit confusing for him as well. Um, Normally, what we use the paper space for, paper space is mostly used. So should I say maybe arrange the drawings for plotting? That's what we try to look at. Okay, that's what we think of when we are looking at the paper space. Um, so again, it brings together annotations and then and drawings. Okay. Again, the goal here is for plotting, okay, typically. Okay. We also have for the model space, we usually have only one. We only have one model space, one model space. But with the paper space, we can have more than one. So we have more than one paper space, more than one paper. And these are what we call the layouts. Okay. So these are what we call the layout. So you can have layout one, layout two, layout three, layout 1,000. You can have so many layouts, okay? And this layout, each one is actually the paper space, okay? And that's where we try to maybe add title blocks. We try to make sure that we get the right scale, and then usually also useful for creating what we call the batch print, where you print so many things at once, all right? So the same drawing, and you can come into the paper space and maybe just print maybe only one. Assuming, let's say we are looking at a table, maybe just print column one, or maybe column two, or maybe cell A1, or maybe cell A3. Maybe those are what you only want to print. You can do that easily with the paper space. Okay. Um, so again, in the paper space, we can also see that drawings um, are organized and laid out or laid out in preparation for plotting. All right. So let's look at a typical paper space and let's see what is so crucial about it. Um, what am I looking for? Okay, great. I don't need this. I need something else. Okay. Hopefully this time around, this is gonna work. let's see. All right, this works perfectly. So this is how your paper space looks like. The small that goes into it. So we have the gray area. Maybe let me use a different color. Red. Okay, so this gray area here, it's actually very big. It's just a gray background. Okay, it doesn't really do anything. We can hide it if we want. But mostly I just leave it as it is. Some do hide it too. So it's gray area, which is inactive. And then the white outline, that becomes our paper size or our paper. Okay. So this is usually will be maybe if it's A0, if it's A1, if it's A whatever, this is the paper size. All right. Then the dotted lines we see here are the plot margins. Okay. So what this means is that this zone the zone here will not be used or no printing will happen within this zone. Okay. And then we also have our so these are drawings as we can see them. Okay. Or the objects. Then we have this important item here. This line. Okay. It's called the viewport. So I think let's look at what the viewport is and let me explain it before I move on to something else. So we can define the viewport as let me say a facility. I mean, that's an interesting word to use. It's a facility. So that is an AutoCAD, obviously, that uses or that users can to split AutoCAD into to several screens. This is not a very great explanation, but what it does is that it creates an area in which you can see your drawing. All right. The idea is that on the same piece of paper, you can actually print your drawing. The same drawing can be printed on the same piece of paper multiple times at once. Okay. So the viewport becomes like a window in which you can see parts or all of your drawings. And that window we can have as many as possible. Okay, so that is the idea for the viewport. Okay. And we create viewports, so we can create viewports. Okay. So the one we are looking at is rectangular in shape. We can have different shapes of the viewports. All right. It could be rectangular, they could be oval, it could be any shape that we want them to be in. Here we only have one viewport, but we can have multiple viewports. All right. So you can pick your drawing, and if this is your paper, and within it you have some viewports. So this is viewport 1, viewport 2, viewport 3. You can have as many viewports as you want. And each viewport will be a window or a screen to which you can see the drawings that you did in the model space. Okay. And So once we have that, we should be able to um, do whatever we need to do. Okay. Before we plot within the layout or the paper space, we need to understand what page setup is. Okay. You need to set up your layout or your paper space for for printing or for plotting. Okay. And just like how we had a typical um, printing, um, as we looked at earlier. Hopefully this also works without too much. Okay, I think this time around it's moving fast. All right. So usually you have to set up your paper space. We've gone through this already, right? Um, what happens in the space is that you need to tell AutoCAD that anytime it says a particular layout, all right, it should use this information to print. You don't have to go back each time you want to print in that layout or in that paper space. That you have to decide on what the plotter will be, what the paper size would be, how to plot, and then all of that. Okay, you set it up and you save it. So it becomes like a template on which, for that particular drawing file, they are going to use that information to print for you. Okay. So let's go through. I think we've gone through that already. Um, we have the plotter. So I think we mentioned that already. So this is the plotter. Okay. What is critical to us is the area to plot. Okay. When we're plotting in the model space, the area to plot was just, or the area to plot were the windows. So in the model space, we had the area to plot was window, was a window, was the extent, there was display, and there was limits. Okay. So these are only they are only visible when we are looking at the model space. Now, when we move to the um, the paper space, which an example of that is a layout. We can rename them anyways. We have another one called layouts. So it means that if you are printing within the layout space, then you should choose the layout to print. If you choose window, if you choose extent, if you choose display, you are not printing the layout. Okay. So let's take note of that. We print within, if you're in the layout space, you need to print. Your area of printing will be the layout. Um, then when it comes to the plot options, okay, preferably you'd want to plot the line width. You'd want to plot the plot styles. These are just typically the colors that you use for the different um, layers that you created. Then here, well, for now it says none, but we have options that we use to plot. Okay. The let me show it to you guys shortly. Where are you? Okay, there you are. Um, so there's a page setup manager. Let me add that as well. So you can always create as many as you want. And then, so here, when it comes to the pen assignments, right, just like how we have in the technical drawing where when you are drawing, you use 2H pencils, HB pencil, 4H pencils, depending on which part of your drawings are critical to you, so that the most important aspects are more visible and thicker in terms of their line weights. We also apply something very simple, something similar to that of the AutoCAD, right? So usually you find the pen styles, they are usually, I think there's one called Arcade that just styles. There is the grayscale where everything prints in grayscale. We also have the monochrome where everything prints in either black or white, right? With a grayscale, they print in shades from black towards white, from white towards black. So there are different shades in between white and black. Okay. Then there are other types, screening, 25%, screening 100%, and all of that. We can play around with them to see how well they work. But mostly you find yourself using the arcade and grayscale and monochrome. All right, if you want a pure black and white sets of drawings. So now when you set your so when you set your paper space and all of that, and then so now we are looking at the layouts. So you've done your paper, your page setup manager and everything. Going back to the layout, which is here, okay? So the drawing in this space, okay, can be printed to a scale, all right? Or they can be plotted to a scale. But what scale do you want them to be? Okay. So that's one thing to look at. So the scale to plot in, okay. We know that if you have a scale of, let's say, 1:2, then if it's one on paper, if it's 1 unit on paper, then it means that 1 unit on paper, it's equals 2 units uh, uh, in real space. Okay. So in the same sense, 1:200. So it means that if for example, I draw, assuming let's say I'm using millimeters, if I draw 1 millimeter on paper, that 1 millimeter on paper translates to 100 millimeters on the ground. Okay, so this is on paper and this is on ground. Okay. With the model space, it is a non-exhausting, or it's a limitless, let me put it out, it's a limitless canvas, right? Or a limitless drawing area. So you can draw everything as it is. So you measure 1 millimeter, it's 1 millimeter. All right. So it's vast, it's large. There's no limit. So when you are drawing in the model space, you don't really apply scale to it. Okay. So if, for example, you are drawing, maybe it's a school, a football pitch or field. Maybe this is about maybe 100 meters. This is about 50 meters. All right. You can actually draw that in the model space. So the model space, depending on what unit you want to use, you can actually convert this thing whereby you have, so the same drawing, maybe you can go like, okay, I want to use a unit of millimeters. So maybe I make this one 100,000 millimeters, which you can. So make this one 50,000 millimeters, which is the same as 50 meters. So you have not applied any scale to it. That is in the model space. Now, when you come to the paper space, there's no way you can print 100 meters and 50 meters on paper. All right. Paper sizes are pretty much limited. All right. 1182 and 842, I think, are for the A knots or so. So you can say that the highest length is about a meter, right? Which means that you cannot even put any of these measurements on it. So, and that is where scale plays a major role. Okay. So if you are to do that, then it means that you might have to look for an appropriate scale. Look for an appropriate scale. Okay. So let's say if you're looking at A2, right? A2 is, I think, 420, 594, I believe. Yeah, so 420, 594. Now you have, let's say these are the millimeters. Let's put it that way. Okay. Now you have 50,000 meters, 50,000 millimeters, and then 100,000 millimeters to work with. All right. So you need to have a convenient scale to work with. Okay. So here we can even use a scale of 1:100, and let's see if it helps. Okay. So it means that I can, if I divide my 100,000 by 100, I get 1,000 millimeters. That's still not great. Okay. So maybe I can do 500 or 1:200. Let's see. So 1:200, it means that I can convert this guy here to 500 millimeters on paper. Okay. So I'm trying to convert that. And then the 50,000 would be, what's my calculator? So it becomes just 50,000 divided by 200. All right. So that'd be, am I correct? So that'd be 250. Okay. So now I can actually take this and come and fit it right here in this space where I have, this is 500 and this is 250. Okay. So then I've taken my football field that's supposed to be large on the model space and then converted that into a smaller size on the paper. So when I print A2, this is how the drawing will appear on an A2 paper size using the scale of 1:200. Okay. So that's the idea behind the paper space when it comes to the AutoCAD. All right. So with a with a paper space, the appropriate scale also comes down to, should I say, zooming. Okay. Zooming within what we have something called actually the floating model space. It's an interesting term to use. And this floating model space is actually found, even though the name says model space, it is found in the paper space. I'll just show you. It's best to show you what it looks like. So it's found within the paper space, please. So, yeah, so let's take note of that. Or it's found within the layout. Paper space is the same as layouts, just that we have several layouts within the paper space. Um, so let's look at how to work with the layouts and how to apply scale and all of that. Okay. Um, let me see if I have covered all that I need to cover before I move into the paper space. Okay. Um, all right, so let's look at this screen. So if you go to if you follow the mouse, the left, so now I'm in the model space where I did all my drawings. Then below I have layout 1, layout 2, then ISO. I can click on the plus sign to add new layouts. All right, so I can click on add new layout and it just says layout 3. The layout 1, layout 2, ISO A1, and layout 3 are all part of the paper space. All right. So let's click on layout 1. Okay. So by default, when you click on layout 1, you can have this or maybe something without anything in there, looking just like this. Okay. So just a paper area. The gray area here is an inactive area. We can remove it if we want. We don't need that. Okay. Then this portion, here, it's the margin, or should I say the border area. Okay. Then this becomes where your drawing becomes visible. Okay. So drawing is visible in this area. But as we can see, no drawing is visible. And no drawing is visible because before we can show a drawing, we need to create a viewport, a screen through which we can see our drawing. So here, no screen has been created or no window has been created to see our drawing. So no viewport is showing. Now, how do we do that? How do we create viewports? Okay. Anytime you go to the layout, tab, or you go to the layout space, which is part of the paper space, you have a layout tab appearing as part of your tabs, okay, on the ribbon. So you can click on the layout tab. And once you click on the layout tab, you have a series of options available to us. Okay. So here you can actually create a new layout, right? You can create a new layout, or you can create it from templates if we want. You can do the page setup, as I mentioned, which is on the right of it, the page setup. We'll look at how that is done. Then we have the viewports, how to create viewports. Okay, so we can have different types of viewport that we want. There are options. So we have rectangular, polygonal objects. We have what you call the named viewports. Named viewports are a series of predefined viewports for us. All right, maybe 3 viewports together. One is landscape, 2 are portraits, 4 viewports, and all of that. So when you click on named viewports, where is it? Yeah. When you click on name viewport, there are a few that, so we have the single viewport, and we can see the preview on the right. We have 2 vertical viewports, 2 horizontal, 3 with 2 on the left and 1 on the right, 3 with 1 on the left, 2 on the right. We have 3 above, 3 below, 3 vertical, 3 horizontal, 4. You can even create your own viewports if you want. For now, we want to create our own viewport. So I go to rectangular. and I choose rectangular, and I just come in there and draw my viewports. Okay. So once you draw the viewport, now your drawing appears. Okay. So my viewport has a boundary of color green. Okay. You can actually create a layer for your viewport, which is actually the one of the most advisable things to do, or the more advisable things to do is to create a layer for your viewport. Okay. So that you can always manipulate that layer. All right. Sometimes you don't want the viewport to be what's the name, plotted, all right, or printed. So you would want to maybe do VP freeze or maybe plot freeze or whatever, and you would want to take that opportunity. Okay. So now let's click on the viewport and then delete it. We don't need this. Let's use one of the named options. So we go to named, we go to new viewport. Let's choose maybe 3, and let's see how it looks like. So if I draw within this space, I should end up with 3 different viewports. So there's the one on my top left, the one on my bottom left, and there's one on my right. And each one has a drawing in there, the same drawing, as you can see. So I can print this layer, or sorry, this layout, and I'll end up with a drawing appearing 3 times on the same paper. Okay. And that's what makes AutoCAD useful to us as engineers. Okay. Again, maybe we don't want this, so let's delete it. Let's take it away. Let's come back and then create just one viewport, just to explain some concept to us. Okay. Now, if you look down here, okay, it says paper. Okay. Can we all see that? Let me go and do it again. Let me highlight it again. It says paper. All right. Yes, we are in the paper space. All right. So it's saying it's giving us information that we are in the paper space, which is great. So at least you know where you are. Mostly you will always know where you are. So we are in the paper space. Now, I mentioned a term or a series of words, floating model space. Okay. So now, as you can see, sorry, okay. So as you can see, I can zoom out and in, but this zooming out and in is just the paper, it's not the drawing, right? I'm just zooming out and in of the paper, not the drawing. The drawing is going to stay where it is, regardless of whether I zoom in or out of the paper, right? But what if we want to make some changes to the drawing itself? Let's say we want to maybe add a text, or maybe make the drawings appear larger, or apply a scale or a scale factor to the drawing. What do we do? Okay. And what we need is to go into the drawing within the paper space. Okay. So one way is to double click within that viewport. And once you double click in the viewport, now see what happens. Your name has changed to model. Okay. That's like the model space. But because this is occurring within the paper space, we call it the floating model space. It's just terms. All right. So now I can actually go in there, and you see the paper itself is not zooming in and out. The drawing is now the one zooming in and out. And I can do pretty much everything I do in the model space here. I can draw, I can scale, I can copy, I can, and anything I do over here would appear in the main drawing area in the model space. All right. So any changes I apply over here, as long as they are not title blocks and then whatnot, they would appear in the model space. Okay. So we can do that. So as you are zooming in and out, you're actually applying a scale to your drawings. Okay, you're applying some form of scale to the drawings. Okay. So if you want to exit that floating model space, you can just come in here and then click on paper, click for it to change to paper. And once it changes to paper, the drawings do not zoom in and out. Now the paper is what is zooming in and out, which is fine, right? It doesn't affect anything that we are doing. Okay. Now let's see how to apply the scale. Okay. So to apply a scale, we need to ensure that we are in the floating model space. So we always have to make sure that this turns the information below at the status bar changes to model. And once it changes to model, it means that we are in the model space. Okay, you can also double click within the viewport and then you have the same information. Now, how do we apply? What's the name? The scale. And we have it right here. So we have, this is an important part of our printing or getting the scale right to print. Okay, so this area here. We'll look at what these steps, some of them are. So let's start with the one with the numbers, which is the scale. Okay, so it gives you a series of scales. So we have 1:1, 1:2, 1:5, 1:10, 1:100, one, and then we have, so we have the, what's the name? So the 1:1 is the original scale, right? Then from 1:2, oops, it's not showing. How come? Why is it not showing? This is strange. When I click on the scale, it's not showing on the screen. I don't know why. I'm trying to figure out why this is not showing. Okay, I'll just bring it up to the. No idea. Let's see. Okay. Now let me just stop the share and see what's going to happen if I reshare the screen. Maybe let me use screen and see. No, screen will not be a good idea. Let me try it again. This is strange, super duper strange. Okay, let me try the other option too and see. Stop share again, then reshare. Let me share screen. Okay, all right. Yeah, this is terrible, but let me just try it and see. Okay, now it's showing. Strange. Yeah. Anyways, but that's fine. Let's just use that to explain. So we have the scale. So we have the so here is the original scale. Then from 1:2 all the way to 1:100 is supposed to be the reduction scale. Then 2:1, 200:1 are the enlargement scales. Then we can also create our own custom scales. Okay, so you have to click on custom, and then we can add a scale to it. Right, so you can go to add, and then maybe you can do do we have 1:25 in there? No, we can do 1:25. So 1:25. Okay. Then so paper unit is 1, drawing unit is 25, and that's all there is to it. So we click on OK, and we have another scale created, 1:25. You might want to move it down a little bit so that it's like it's in a chronological order. So this is fine. No, go one up. Great. Okay. So now when you come here, you will have the 1:25 that you just created. But then just be careful so that when you are entering the paper unit and then the drawing unit, you enter the right units. Okay. Um, let me not bother myself with this for now. So here we still have a, and you see, watch this area. Let me watch this part very well. But this is our scale. Watch it. As I zoom in and out, you see that the numbers are changing. It means that the scale is changing. All right. So the scale is changing. As I zoom in and out, my scale is changing. All right. So let's choose one scale. Let's here, maybe let's choose 1:10. What is 1:10? Okay. So let me go back to my paper space. I just want to reduce the size of the paper a little bit so we see how everything looks like. So this is okay, fine. Let's go back to the floating model space. 1:10 is not great, right? Because some of my drawing is not showing. So I'll need maybe a slightly bigger scale. Let's say 1:16. Sorry, a slightly smaller scale. So 1:16. So this is fine. 1:16 is fine. Okay. Um, maybe I can pan it, and it is the thing. Once you create the scale and you go back and you zoom in and out, you've changed your scale. So whatever scale you chose is not working anymore. So just take a note of that. So let's come back here and choose our 1:16. So if you want to pan it in view, it's best to use the navigation panel. So you click on pan and you move it slightly towards the right so that you don't see the extra information. And then if you're done with the pan, you can exit the pan mode. Okay, so just escape it, and then you are done. So now you still have a scale of 1:16. What if you mistakenly scroll over it? What do you do? So sometimes what we prefer to do is to lock the viewports. If you lock the viewports, like in this case, if you lock it, you prevent it from mistakenly being what, or you prevent the scale from being mistakenly changed. All right. So now, as I've logged it, it normally moves the drawing into the paper mode. All right. So that any zooming in and out will be zooming in and out of the paper and not of the drawing. Okay. So that scale is 1:16. We can always go back, unlock, and once we unlock, we are still in the paper. If we want to be in the model, the floating model, we click on that. It changes to floating model. And as you can see on the right, the scale is still 1:16. It hasn't changed. But if I mistakenly go in there and I zoom in and out, the scale has changed. Okay, so let's take note of it. And then you can always click elsewhere to move from between paper and a floating model. So you can always do that. So let me just delete this for us. And we can create as many, what's the name, viewports that we want, right? Let's create 2, for example. So for the one on the left, I'm going to use a scale of 1:16. Let's just see how it looks like. Scale of 1:16. Which one would appear first? Okay, let me use a scale of 1:20. Okay, so I can use the pan to bring whatever I want to draw in view. Okay, great. Now let me. Where's my? So let me exit the pan mode. Okay, exit it. So how you do? Okay, so just click on escape and it exits. Now I want to go to the right viewport and also do some changes to it. I also want to use a scale of maybe 1:100. 100 is too much. Let's say 1:100. 50. So maybe I can have these drawings in view. So I have these three guys. Okay, let me say these three guys is fine in view. So let me escape the pan mode. And then let me also escape the floating model so that I don't have to do any damage to it. The best is actually to lock it. If you lock it, you are safe. Okay. Now, what you are seeing on the screen, if I print, this is what I get. So I get these two items printed. And this is where the layout space becomes useful because you can do so much with it. You can print details of drawings. So not the entire drawing, but certain details of the drawing. Okay. Now, one thing I didn't mention earlier was that with each layout, you can edit the layout. Okay, so you can right-click on it. Why is my right-click not working? Okay, let me escape. Okay, so you right-click on it. Then you can rename, you can even delete, and all of that. You can move, you can make a copy of it, and as many things as you want. Okay. Now, the thing we didn't do earlier was to create the page setup. So let's do that. So we have the page setup manager. You click on it, and then it appears. Now I'm going to create a new page setup. So I go with new. So let me call it Hatch Drawings. Maybe Hatch. I'm just creating something. It can be any name that you think is fine. So Hatch Drawing. I click on OK. So now I can tell what I want to plot. So I choose maybe plot to PDF. Then I also choose maybe A4. Okay, A4 is fine. So let me choose A4 portrait. Can I see that somewhere? Yeah. Okay. Should I choose portrait? Okay, then let's just go with the portraits. It's fine. No, okay, no, let's use the landscape. Okay, let's just use the landscape. And then if you come to where to plot, we go with layout, please, because we are in a layout space. So we go with layout. We don't use what's the name? We don't do extent or windows, right? Even though that option should be available to us, we don't use that. So we use layouts. Okay. So once we use the layouts, everything is fine. So the pen style comes into play. We can just use a card. It's just a style that has been created for different pens. You can edit, so it gives you all these colors and all these options. And you usually not go here and do anything, but just so that you know you can play around with your how do you want your drawings to look like. Okay. So let's look at a preview. All right, so this is my preview. What's wrong with my preview? So it has to do with the what's the name? The what am I looking for? It has to do with the dimensions of the margins, which is creating this problem, right? Let's see something. Let's see. Oh, I clicked OK. Okay, let me modify. Let me just look at this again. This is terrible. We don't want portrait, so let's stick with our landscape. Okay. Something's not right. Trying to figure out what is it. Okay, we'll come back. At times also, it could also be the plotter we want to use. All right, that also creates the issue sometimes. But let's go with this. Let's just go with this one for now. We click OK. So this becomes my page setup. That is most likely will be our current page setup. What did I just do? I messed something up. Okay, let's go back and modify. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so this is a reason why we're running into that problem, right? So normally you actually you prefer to do your page setup before you even start with the viewports. Okay. So because I didn't get my page setup first, and that's how my viewports and my page setup were all acting up. Okay. So let me close and let me come here So you can resize your viewports easily. Once I resize my viewports, I think I should be fine now. Let me see. You can make it smaller if you want, make it bigger if you want. So this is fine. Let's print. So let me go ahead and print. So once I click on print, it is going to pick the information that I already saved for my plot. It doesn't go, it's not going to ask me for new information. Yes, I can still change my information, but I don't need to because I already saved or I already created a page setup. Okay. So let's look at the preview of it. And this is what I'll get when I print. So let me go ahead and print for us to see PDF. Let me just save it somewhere I can get access to. Let's go to documents, or maybe just go to desktop. Okay, so just save it in desktop. And then once it's saved, it opens. So this is, yeah, the whole thing is, so this becomes, let me reduce this. Yeah, so this is my plotted drawing. So this is how it would appear when you print it. Okay. There's a way to also make sure that the viewport layer doesn't plot. We can look at that some other time. Yeah. So I think this should cover enough information, enough on the plotting and all of that. The All right, so I think this should be it. Yeah. I'm going to end the class here. What I'll do is that over the weekend, over the depending on what my schedule is, I'm gonna do another pre-recording. All right. And this pre-recording will be on blocks and attributes. Okay. I'll look for the time and get this thing done. And then I'll post that also on the V Campus for you guys to watch it. So that next week we can start with something entirely new, all right? Because we are, I think, a week or two behind. So let's push through. All right. Thank you. And then enjoy the rest of your day.